Hello and welcome to part 3 of my deep dive into admin by request EPM app control on Windows endpoints. In this video, part 3, I'm going to be talking about our AI approval feature and how that works and why and when you might want to use that. So when I talk to customers about their ABR EPM implementations, I'm regularly disappointed to hear that they didn't enable the AI approval feature in their environment, which I think is a great shame, in particular for initial implementation where I think its capability really shines. Yes, you can create those pre-approval rules, but there are a gazillion number of applications out there, and I think this is a great example of how something like AI can play a powerful part in reducing the number of rules you need to make, which, after all, is going to make your admin by request EPM tenant far easier to manage in the long term. So here you see the report I mentioned earlier, which is the elevated applications report. So you can see the applications that are being elevated, and then if you look on the right hand side you'll see two columns, app and vendor, and those are the AI scores that those applications and vendors have been awarded by us from our logarithm that is run on every single elevation that is made. So it's really all about success and popularity. So this is a snapshot from the audit log. AI approval works by drawing on our global database of application elevations, probably the largest database of its kind known to man, and one that contains over 14 million applications. Each one of those applications is given a popularity score for the application and also the associated vendor. The higher the frequency of successful application elevations, then the higher the popularity score will be for it. Likewise, the vendor too. So when I mean successful elevations, I mean the application has elevated with admin by request, and that also means that it's passed our OpSWAT meta defender real-time check as well. So it's a very good gauge of reputation as well. And what's also good about this feature is you get the single slider that you can use to essentially decide what level, what score of popularity you want to allow apps through for auto elevation or to be sent for manual approval. At the start of big implementations with perhaps thousands, tens of thousands of staff, try to reduce the disruption from day one. You can use lower scores. So only the more edgy app and vendor requests will go through to approval, and then as you monitor over time, perhaps after you've added rules in elsewhere, you can slowly raise the bar and set higher thresholds. So let's have a look at AI approval. Okay then, so AI approval, as usual, I'm going to start off to show you that the current configuration has approval enabled, which is an important proviso in using AI approval. You can't use it unless you have approval enabled. So this is set here. So if I was to want to elevate anything on this computer, I would have to go through approval. So I'll just do a few of these apps. You can see Rufus, VLC, Garmin Express. These are all things that need actually Garmin Express. I'd need to actually manually request to elevate it. You can see I would go through the approval process. So if we now have a look, how do we enable AI approval? Well, I do have my subsetting here for app control. So I'm going to go into app control, go into AI approval, override global settings, because I want to put this on my subsetting, and I've got choices to enable this as an AI app auto approval or as an AI vendor auto approval. So initially I am going to use the AI vendor auto approval, and I'm going to set this score, I think, to something like a 10 initially. Also have to check this disclaimer box as well. So I'll do that. There we go. And actually I'm going to refer to my elevated applications report, and you can see here that I've set the score to 10. You can see here, there it is, vendor 10. So anything that is 10 or higher will be allowed to be on the vendor score, will be allowed to be elevated. And I think you'll see there's pretty much all of those have a vendor score that is higher than 10. So if we go now back to this endpoint, previously you saw me just now attempt to elevate and we got the form. Now if I try to elevate, I don't get the form. So if I continue with this and go yes and elevate that application, and then if I go to the audit log, you will see in real time, because obviously we record stuff in real time, that if I break this open, it's running elevation. And how is it approved? Well, it's the AI auto approval you can see there. So I'm going to close that down and I'm going to hit refresh, and that will change from running to finished, hopefully. There we go. Perfect. Back over here now. So how about we increase this score to 20? So, I did mention that at the start of an implementation, you might have thousands of users. You may be tempted just to go and turn approval off because you're worried about the volume of approvals that you're going to get on day one. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would keep approval turned on, but I would enable the AI approval feature, and I might go with a low score like 10. So with a low score like 10, you're going to pretty much get most of those applications are going to bypass approval and go through. But there's some interesting provisos there. So you would get the blocking features if you added them. So unlike pre-approval, with AI approval, blocking takes priority over that. So you would have some control over what applications to block, and also you would be able to, the malware feature, if you're using pre-approval rules, malware, we still log the reputation of an application, but with pre-approvals, malware is bypassed. So anything that's a pre-approval rule, as you know, it's the highest priority of rule. So anything that was seen to be suspicious, if you'd entered a pre-approval rule for that, then that would not get blocked, but it would get logged. So in this case, though, anything that passes through AI approval that was found to be malicious or later found to be malicious would get blocked. Anyway, so we've set this to 10 before. We have seen that's allowed those applications to pass through. So I am now going to set this to a vendor score of 20 and hit save, like so. And I'm going to refer to my report again. So, okay, vendor scores, we can see actually that Rufus is a 13, that's not 20. And also we've got VLC is a 15. So on the other hand, though, we can see that Garmin is a 30, and we'll talk about Java in a minute. But let us have a look at how this changes things. So if we go to what we're going to do, so I'm going to, so Rufus is not a 20, so this will now take me through the approval process, and the same goes for VLC, which is a 15. Okay, so those worked before with a score of 10, but we've raised that bar to 20, and now those particular applications are being forced through to manual approval. But anything that is higher than the 20, so for example, Garmin Express, this is still allowed to be elevated. Okay, so hence the beauty of having that slider. You can start off low. You may get a handful of requests for approval, and then you can kind of nudge it up until you kind of reach a kind of sweet spot as to what level of popularity you have versus the number of approval requests that come in. So, however, you might have noticed in this report here that Java was 66, or Oracle was a 66, Java being 100, and SQL Workbench is a 13 on application score, but 66. So this means that with our vendor score of 20, unfortunately, the Oracle stuff will be allowed through. So if I was to try to elevate the Java application, that would be allowed through without approval. So again, this is the kind of beauty of the priorities here, because we now know that blocking takes priority over AI approval. So this is where I would go into my audit log, I would find an Oracle application, and I would block. And here I have the option to block the particular Oracle software that I don't want to allow. That could just be that Java thing, or I could decide to block all of Oracle. So that would mean, again, I could put a note in here. So no Oracle allowed, or call help desk, like so. So that's good. So I got my AI approval. I've turned it up to 20. We know that the Oracle vendor is 66, but I'm blocking Oracle as a as an application in the blocking settings you can see here. So let's just see what that looks like on the endpoint. So if I try to run anything now made by Oracle, so this is a Java installer, I get blocked. So AI approval is fantastic in that respect. It does allow me to auto approve all apps that have vendors scores of higher than 20, but not Oracle, because I'm blocking Oracle, because the blocking rule takes priority over the AI rule. So that's quite nice. Right then, so the other thing we're going to do now is we're going to enable the app score now as well. So this changes things a little bit. So how this works, when you have both of these enabled, we take the lowest score of either one. So by enabling the app side of things, I'm going to re-accept the terms, that's fair enough. Like so, if we go back to that report again, so previously when the vendor score was pushed up to 20, I wasn't able to elevate Rufus, and I wasn't able to elevate VLC. I've now put the AI app score in, and I've made that to be 20. So what this means is that Rufus, which is a 48, will now no longer need to be approved manually. So if I go ahead and do Rufus, this will now start without taking me to approval, like so. However, VLC doesn't qualify for either. It's not above 20 for vendor, and it's certainly not above anywhere near 20 for the application. So VLC is still going to need to go through to manual approval, and there we go. So that's fantastic. Okay, so I think really that sums up AI approval quite nicely. You can have either AI app auto approval on and set a score, vendor auto approval on and again with a score, or you can have them both. Just bear in mind that if you have both on, we take the kind of lowest score from either or. That's really just going to give you a lot more control over which applications and vendors you're going to allow through. And you have that also you have that ability to create blocking rules, so that if a certain vendor can get through AI approval as it's a popular vendor, for example, you may not want users to be elevating Wireshark internally. It's a very reputable application, but I just don't want people elevating it. So that's be a classic example where you might want to put a block in for that. Remember, we're blocking on popularity or we're creating a rule for popularity, but you may still have, inverted commas, popular applications and vendors that you just don't want, for whatever reason, to be elevated in your environment. And the other thing I would say that is quite useful for the AI application approvals is that, of course, with vendors, you're allowing a vendor, any file from that vendor, you have a score. With applications, we actually give a score to a application name. As long as the application name itself is consistent between versions of that application, then any version, for example, of Notepad++, will therefore be allowed through. Whereas with VLC, you see they put the version name in the application, so that would have a different name for every application, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, AI approval. I hope you enjoyed that little walkthrough, and also hope that you implement this feature, because it is actually a very nice feature indeed. So the final video in the series, part 4, is machine learning, and the reason why it's last is that if you have applications that are forced down a manual approval because they don't meet those AI scores, then the machine learning is going to be another way for you to reduce those approval requests, because once they go through to approval, if they don't meet the AI scores, machine learning is going to enable you to learn in those particular requests, so eventually those will get auto approved as well. But until then, so I'll see you soon, and cheerio.